point that we have to discuss, which is the day of doubt, the last day of Sha'ban and the first day of Ramadan. When fasting this day, we have to consider certain things. First of all, it is not permissible to fast that day under the intention that it's a day of doubt, or that it's the first, or in case it's the first day of Ramadan. We don't fast it that way. So what we say is it is not permissible to fast the day of doubt of whether it is the first month of Ramadan or the first day of the month of Ramadan or not, with the intention that it is the first day. Why? Because we don't have certainty, we have doubt. However, it is permissible with the intention that it is the last day of Sha'ban. So I cannot fast it based on the fact that it might be the first day of Ramadan, but I can fast it based on the fact that it is the last day of Sha'ban. Because it is definitely the last day of Sha'ban. However, we have doubt as to whether it's the last day of the first day of Ramadan or not. However, if throughout the day the individual becomes aware that it is the first day of Ramadan, then at this point the individual can continue fasting that day as the first day of Ramadan. So I began this morning fasting the last day of Sha'ban. However, throughout the day, a scholar came to me whom I trust, who I know knows his job, and this is his job, or two scholars came to me and they said, "Did you know that today is the first day of Ramadan?" I said, "Well, great, I'm already fasting the last day of Sha'ban. Now that it's clear it's the first day of Ramadan, I will continue fasting under the understanding that it's the first day of Ramadan." Now it says that unless it is made clear that the moon has appeared on the night before, on the night I mentioned earlier, meaning that it is not permissible. Let's read it properly. It is not permissible to break the fast of the day that is in doubt, if it is the first day of Ramadan or the last day of Sha'ban, unless it is made clear that the moon has appeared on the night before, on the night mentioned earlier. Let's understand something about fasting. And this is a question that we are always asked by our non-Muslim brothers, our equals in humanity, as Imam Ali says in his famous quote to Malik al-Ashtar. He says, "O Malik, men are one of two, or people are one of two, either your brother in faith or your equal in humanity." So a lot of our friends and our brothers and sisters who are non-Muslim ask this question: what is fasting? What is fasting? Let's answer this briefly. We say that fasting is the act of restraining from certain things, restraining ourselves from certain things that are considered to nullify our fasting, or to break our fasting. What are those things? Mainly intentionally eating or drinking water, whether little or a lot. However, unintentional. One question that is always asked is, what is fasting? And we will answer this question briefly. We will say that fasting is the restraining or refraining from certain things that nullify our fasting, our withholding, our restraining, our self-restraint, or things that break our fast. What are those things? We'll refer to them. First is intentionally eating or drinking, whether little or a lot is irrelevant, is intentionally eating or drinking. However, unintentionally eating or drinking does not affect the fasting, like if someone forgot that they were fasting. So it's the first, second, third day of Ramadan, and you see your brother eating. Now, you can rush them and say, "Oh, what are you doing? Why are you eating? It's Ramadan." Okay? Or you can let him finish. Let him finish eating. When he finishes eating, you say, "You realize it's Ramadan." If the brother remembers this, "Oh my God, I can't believe I just ate a whole breakfast. Just ate a nice omelet." We say, "Don't worry, your fasting is still valid because you forgot." If you did it intentionally, if you made yourself a decent omelet and you ate intentionally, then your fasting is nullified. It doesn't count. But if you ate unintentionally, not a problem. We see that a lot of brothers come to us and they come to me specifically and they say, Shaykhna, I woke up this morning and I forgot I was fasting and I drank a glass of water. I say, well done, good for you, man. Why? Because it was unintentional. I forgot that I drank a cup of water. Now that cup of water is going to last you for the rest of the day. It's going to kind of hydrate you a bit more. So unintentionally eating or drinking is irrelevant. Intentionally eating or drinking nullifies your fast. Number 2 is intercourse for both individuals. That doesn't need explanation. Number 3 is ejaculation or masturbation. Number 4 is intentionally vomiting. Intentionally vomiting nullifies your fasting. Number 4 is deliberately ingesting water or other liquid. Ingesting it in other means, obviously, other than drinking. Number 6 is deliberately lying about God subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet, or the infallibles from the household of the Prophet, or any infallibles for that matter, or any of the Prophets. Number 7 is deliberately taking in dust or thick smoke through your mouth as a necessary precaution. Now there's a lot for us to talk about this thing, but basically if you intentionally inhale thick smoke or dust, then that also nullifies your fasting. A point that is sort of sensitive but we must touch upon as for educational purpose is the issue of ejaculation. If an individual ejaculates during the month of Ramadan at nighttime, so during the nighttime, the individual must do ghusl, must bathe properly according to Islamic jurisdictions before the prayer of Fajr. So before the time of fasting begins, the dusk begins, the individual must bathe, must do ghusl, which is the time when the fasting becomes obligatory. Sorry, I said dusk, I meant dawn. However, if the individual cannot do ghusl, cannot bathe, due to an ailment or other reasons, the individual must do tayammum. Ghusl and tayammum, God willing, we will touch upon in tomorrow's episodes, or not tomorrow, in later episodes. Continuing, if the individual deliberately leaves ghusl of janaba, or menstruation, or nifas, and tayammum. So if the individual deliberately does not get up and do ghusl, whether from janaba, from ejaculation, from menstruation for our sisters, nifas, if nifas is a blood that a woman sees after giving birth, the extension of which would be 10 days, and leaves tayammum for no reason, so there's no motivation, there's no reason why he does that or she does that, then the individual must make up that day as well as cease from anything that would nullify the fasting during the day with the intention of submitting to God. Meaning that if this individual leaves the ghusl deliberately without reason, this individual, his fasting is considered nullified. He or she must make it up afterwards. However, at the same time, they must cease, or they should cease from eating or drinking anything as a precaution. Actually, it doesn't say as a precaution, it just says that this individual should cease or must cease from anything that nullifies their fasting. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin.
Thank you.